Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Dennis Brown, and this is my weekly Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Now, I've been sick for a couple of weeks, so I've had to reschedule and reschedule and reschedule. Long story, but I'm glad that I'm back. And today we are going to be doing a live Q&A. It's what I call an Ask Me Anything session, right? So if you have questions about freight broker startup or freight broker sales or marketing or financial management or anything related to starting and growing a successful freight brokerage or freight agency, I'm here for you today. This is what we're going to focus in on. We're going to be doing a live Ask Me Anything session. So I'm happy that you're here. Looking for some people to get live. When you join, hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. I'll do some shout outs. So today's format is really simple. You're going to do some shout outs. Then we're going to jump right into some Q&A. Okay, so that's where we're at. So I am so excited that you guys are here. Jordan from Naples, welcome. Anthony from Temple, Texas, welcome. Excuse me. Betty Jones from Wilson. North Transfer from Minnesota, Missy. Scott from Plymouth Meeting, PA. Brian Daniel from Independence, Oregon. So we get people from all over the place. It's crazy. It kind of amazes me sometimes. We have people from Central America and South America and, Central Europe and all over the place. It's really Canada and Mexico. It's crazy. I mean, we get people that log in. I've had over 10,000 students go through my Freight Broker Bootcamp startup program. And I did a study. I did a quick look at it a few years ago. And some of those clients ranged in 16 different countries around the world, which I thought was pretty crazy. Because when I put this program together, almost 15 years ago, I was focused mainly on the United States because that's where people were asking me questions. But, as the global economy has continued to expand and the internet has proliferated, I think the democratization of information has helped a lot as well through the internet. So, we've had students in 16 different countries, again, well over 10,000. It's probably closer to 20,000 or more. I just haven't done the math and I got sick of changing the numbers. So thank you everybody for joining me. Let's finish with a few shout outs here and then we'll jump into some live Q&A. Oh boy, we got a bunch of people. Welcome, Saul. Welcome, Arthur from Los Angeles. Philippe from Medellin, Colombia. Love it. Brian Graves from Maryland. Tremecca from Tomlinson Bayless from Clayton, North Carolina. Ron from Hampton, Virginia. Welcome. Michael from Melville, New York. Kimberly from the Philippines. Nice. John from Ontario, California. Sanjay from California. Jeffrey Battle, my friend. How are you? Brittany, welcome. Thank you. Hold your questions until we get into the live Q&A, okay? Because they're going to get lost in the feed. If you don't hold your question, they're going to get lost in the feed. So hold on until I say go. I'll let you know when I'm going to start doing the Ask Me Anything session. And so again, welcome everybody. Welcome Charles from Danbury, New Hampshire. So listen, a couple things on, a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into live Q&A. Number one, sorry I haven't been able to be live, okay? Been sick for a couple of weeks. Don't want to get into a lot of detail. I'm okay now. Everything's fine. I really missed these live sessions, particularly the Q&A, right? I love doing the Q&A session. So today, when I was figuring out a topic, I said, let's just do all Q&A. We'll focus exclusively on the questions and issues and challenges that you're having. And so that's the reason why I put this Ask Me Anything session together today. That's what we're going to focus in on. Next, I have great news. Great news for you guys because it's the beginning of 2025. Right? We're going to jump this off. We're going to really launch this. And my point is that I'm going to be opening enrollment very soon. I don't have an exact date yet, but it's very soon. I promise you. Okay. For my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator coaching program. Okay. So for those of you who don't know what that means, it is not the Freight Broker Bootcamp startup program. If you're interested in just true startup and learning how to become a freight broker or freight agent, you go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. But if you're struggling with getting shippers, if you're struggling with the freight broker sales side of it and getting clients, okay, That's what the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is put together for. It's an 8-week live coaching program where I personally coach and mentor you for 8 weeks to help you get your first 5 or 10 shippers and on your way to doing 7 figures in sales. Okay. So if you guys are interested in that, it's wait list only. Okay. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. It's free to get on the wait list. The program is not free. Okay. The program is not cheap. I have not finalized the pricing yet, so don't ask me what I'm going to be charging, but I can tell you that I've been told by many, many, many people that I should be charging $10,000 plus for this program. Now, I'm not charging anywhere near that, but I've been told many times that I could be charging $10,000 plus for this program. And again, if you get on the wait list, when I open enrollment, there's going to be limited spots. You'll get notified. You'll get all the information. And if you're ready to go, you'll be able to enroll in the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program. We had over 1,000 students go through that program. And the average rating that we've had from students that have completed an exit survey at the end of the program is a 9.2 out of 10. Okay. I mean, need I say more, right? That's directly from the horse's mouth. That's people that have actually completed the program. We had a lot of great success stories out of that. So if you're struggling with getting shippers, if you're struggling with getting clients, if you're struggling with the sales side, okay, which is where a lot of people struggle after they get through the initial startup, get on the wait list. Okay. Awesome. Cool. All right, good. So here we go, guys. First of all, before we do this, are there any Freight Broker Bootcamp on the online course? Are there any Freight Broker Bootcamp students in here? Hit me up in the comments and let me know. Or is there anybody who's a first timer this is the first time they've ever been to one of my lives? Hit me up in the comments. I'd like to know who's here. And then also, if you've already went through the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, let me know if you've already been through the Sales Accelerator program as well. Cool. Jordan, awesome. Went through both. Scott, did you go through boot camp or Sales Accelerator or both? Nice. Devin went through FBBC. Good. That's through the boot camp. Tramika, first timer. Awesome. I hope you have some good questions. Brian, first timer. Awesome. Philippe, student. Awesome. Scott, through the boot camp. Great. All right. You're interested in the Sales Accelerator. Okay, great. So if you're interested in the Sales Accelerator, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to entertain a ton of questions today about it, even though this is a Q&A. I have not finalized the price. I can't get into a ton of detail. If you want to get on the wait list and you want to learn more about that, all you do is go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. There it is right there. freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. That's all you got to do. All right, cool. So without further ado, let's jump in to the live Q&A. Welcome, Saul, first timer. Welcome, Ron, first timer. Good. Baseball boys, first timer. Good. Awesome. Finish Line Logistics. Did the FBBC training and the Sales Accelerator 2001. Still going strong. Awesome. Love it. So we got a lot of first timers in here. All right, good. So Anthony has a question about, let's see, here we go. Anthony, the surety bond link in the FBC training goes to a company that wants 3 years of age. Do you have a company that offers bonds to new startups? We're a member of the BC class. Okay. So here's something that's changed in the last year to year and a half. A lot of bonding companies, okay, have changed their parameters. And the reason why they changed their parameters is twofold. Number one, during the kind of the downward spiral from the peak, right? There was a peak freight boom, and then there was a downward spiral. A lot of carriers and even brokers went out of business for a variety of different reasons. Okay. The MCs, they lost their MCs. Not all of them were even really active in running business, but a lot of MCs went out of business. All right. And so what happened was the insurance companies had to pay out claims, And the FMCSA came in and started announcing some new regulations about bonding and about BMC 84s and BMC 85s and different things associated with bonding. So what's happened is the insurance industry, the bonding industry has tightened up their parameters. Okay. Now, there are still bonding companies out there that will underwrite providers, but you will typically need a little bit better credit. Okay. You're typically going to need a little bit better credit, or you're going to need, particularly credit, right? If you have A credit, B credit, you're probably not going to have an issue. But if you have C or D credit, you may not get underwritten, or the bond costs may be really, really high, $5,000 or $10,000, which is astronomical. I would not recommend you pay that type of bonding, okay, cost for a bond. What I would strongly suggest, if you're struggling to get a bond, okay, and I've got some feelers out to some different bonding companies that may be focused a little bit more on startups, but that's going to be a little bit tough these days if you don't have good credit. What I'm going to tell you is this. It's very, very simple. Your solution is this. I know you want to be a freight broker and I know you want a bond, but if you can't afford or qualify for a bond right now, here's all you need to do. It's very simple. Start as a freight agent. Okay. Now, a freight agent is an independent 1099 contractor that works under a licensed freight broker. So they've already got their bond, they've already got their license, they're already established, and they work on a straight commission basis. They get 50 to 70% of the profit that they originate. Now, they don't need to have a bond, they don't need to have a license, they don't need to have insurance, they don't need to, do billing or collections or any of the back office. They partner with that broker and they're able to get 50 to 70% of the profit on any loads that they originate. The cool thing is you can work from home, very little startup, very little risk, and it gets your foot in the door where you can start making some positive cash flow. All right. That's the secret. The secret is getting your first 3 or 4 or 5 shippers so you can start making positive cash flow. From there, you're going to build some experience, right? You're going to build some revenue, some profit. And then if you're able to improve your credit over the next year or 2 years, or you're able to, save up some money at that point, now you can always transition from an agent to a broker later. Here's what you got to understand. Now, I'm not promising you anything, but here's what I'm going to tell you right now. Agents, people look at becoming an agent like it's like it's a lesser opportunity. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I personally know agents that generate over $100,000 a month in their pocket after all expenses, minus taxes, of course, not taxes, but gross income after all expenses, $100,000 a month. Now, that's not the norm, and that's not what I'm telling you you're going to make. I'm not trying to mislead you. But what I want you to understand, these are small businesses. Some of them have little or no employees, and they've partnered with the broker who does all the back office, and they make a huge income. So here's what I'm telling you. If your goal is to make 6 figures, or maybe your goal is to make mid 6 figures, 3 or 4 or $500,000 a year, which is an incredible income under anybody's standards, the easiest and fastest way to do that is become a freight agent. Okay. So many people get caught up on the freight broker bond and the freight broker licensing and the complexity and all of the issues in the back office and factoring and setting up technology and all that. And it really slows them down and really prevents a lot of people from ever getting to first base. When you become a freight agent, you literally focus your time on finding customers, moving their freight, supporting them, and getting paid a commission on any loads that you originate. So if you move a load where you make $200 profit, the shipper pays you $1,000 and you pay a carrier $800 and you're making $200 in profit just for easy math, you're going to make between $100 and $140 commission on that one load. Now imagine just moving 1 load a day, okay? Or, 2 loads a day or 5 loads a day as an agent where you have no risk on the back end and you're just heavily focused on supporting and serving your customers. So I'm going to tell you right now, I will try to help. And I've been trying to talk to some bonding companies out there a little bit more focused on startups, but do not let the bond or the startup issue associated with being a broker stop you from pursuing your dream. I promise you, The freight agent business model, the freight agent opportunity is the best opportunity going. If you want to become a broker, you're going to need 3, 4, 5, maybe as much as $10,000, depending upon your credit. As an agent, you literally can get started for a few $100. Here's what you need: a computer, a phone, some instructions, some knowledge, and a broker to work with, and you're literally in business. Okay? So I can't stress it enough. I've been saying it for years, but people always kind of move away from the agent model, and I really have no idea why. So, Anthony, I hope that helps out. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the kind words. Oh, here you go. Brittany, should you ever sign a non-compete if a company is making you sign up with them? Okay, so if you are talking about a W-2, if you're working inside of a company as a W-2 employee, a lot of brokerages will require you to sign a non-compete, maybe an NDA, things of that nature. You have to be the judge as to whether, excuse me, you can hear the remnants of my illness here. But as a W-2 employee, a lot of companies will require you to sign a non-compete. All right. If you don't sign it, they probably won't employ you. So you got to make the decision on your own there. If you are talking about becoming an independent freight agent, a 1099 freight agent, you should never, ever, ever sign a non-compete with a broker. You should never, ever, ever sign a contract that says that you cannot transition your customers with you if you choose to leave your customers, not their customers, your customers with you. Okay? So those are just kind of hard and fast rules, I can promise you. If a freight broker is requiring you to sign a non-compete or a no circumvent where you can't go bring your customers with you if you transition, that is a huge red flag. Now, there are very few of them out there, but there probably are some out there. You need to avoid them at all costs. Okay. I hope that helps. If you have a follow-up, let me know. Question from Charles. What are the chances of being hired by a broker with no experience? However, I'm going to take the boot camp class. Charles, the chances are amazing of getting hired as a freight broker by a freight broker as a freight agent if you have no experience. Here's why. They have zero risk. You're going to be working. You're not asking them for a $50,000 or $60,000 salary. You're not asking them for health insurance. You're not asking them for a 401k. You're not asking them for a car allowance. You're not asking them for expenses. You're asking them for a straight commission position where if you bring new business to the table, they pay you based on the profit that's generated in a partnership. So here's the thing. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll go, they want to become a freight agent. They'll go focus on the large agent companies, right? My old company like LDI, or they'll go to other large companies that have agent programs. And what'll happen is they'll get rejected because those companies have an established, long-standing business and reputation, and they have a product that can command experienced agents who have a book of business. But if you focus and you change your focus and you focus on smaller to medium-sized brokers, maybe a broker who's been in business for a year or 2 or 3 and is looking to grow, they've got their footing under them. They've got some of their own customers. They're moving along. They've got things moving, right? And they went through those initial hurdles, that initial first year or 2, which is the most challenging part of a startup. And now you come to them and you offer them an opportunity to generate more revenue with zero cost unless you perform. It's performance only, right? You have a great opportunity. Now, I'm not telling you that all of those companies are going to hire you, but I can tell you there are thousands of brokers out there, thousands, okay, that will hire an agent who does not have experience or a book of business if you follow a very simple system. If you go to my blog, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog, let me see, I probably have the URL here somewhere. Or if you just go there, right? Just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog and you search for Get Hired. Okay. There's an entire article and a video where I teach you step by step on how to get hired with no experience. Now, I have never had anybody follow those instructions and then come back to me later and tell me that they were unable to get hired as an agent. Never. Okay. So if you follow that system, now, if you reach out to one broker and they tell you no and you quit, well, that's your fault, right? You're not going to survive as a broker or an agent or an entrepreneur or in sales at all. It doesn't matter. You're just not going to survive. If you take rejection where you can't handle any sort of rejection, you're going to struggle in any business or in anything of any consequence or significance in life. So follow that system. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog, search Get Hired. You'll see the post and the video where I go walk through that entire step-by-step system. Okay. So it's absolutely, positively 100% possible to get hired as a freight agent with no experience if you focus on talking to the right brokers and you follow that simple system. Okay. Hope that helps. Question from TMP Hustle. Can you be a 1099 freight agent and work with multiple brokerages? If so, how do you juggle that? Potentially you can represent multiple brokerages. Now, I'm not a big fan of that. Okay. But potentially you can. Most brokerages don't have an exclusive, or if they do have exclusivity, it's only an exclusivity on the services that they offer. So let's say a broker focuses on full truckload. You might have to exclusively work full truckload with them. You could work LTL with someone else, right? So that's just an example, but many of them don't. In most cases, as an independent contractor, you can have multiple brokers. I'm not a big fan of it, and here's why. It creates a lot of complexity and it creates a lot of confusion. Let me explain to you what I mean. The complexity and confusion centers around when you're calling a shipper or when you're working with a shipper, and if you're moving this week, you're moving a load through ABC brokerage for that shipper. Okay. Or next week you're moving for XYZ brokerage. They're not going to know who the invoice is coming from because you represent multiple brokers. So it can create some confusion on the billing side to the shipper. It can also create a lot of confusion with the carriers. The reason being, one day you're representing ABC broker, the next day you're representing XYZ broker. That would create a lot of questions and red flags in my mind when it comes to carriers, okay? Because, again, every industry has fraud, every industry has theft, but whenever there's a red flag like that, right, where you're representing, this broker this week and this broker this week, right, where you're calling from those different brokerages, especially if you're calling the same company and they notice that, it's going to be a red flag. So I'm not a big fan of it. Okay. Where I think it might work, okay, or where I might make exception to that is, say, for example, I've got a broker where I do the majority of my business. Let's say I do 90% full truckload and I'm heavily focused on full truckload, but they're not very good at LTL. I might find a broker who does really good LTL and has really good LTL rates and LTL technology. Or even like rail or ocean, whatever. I might find a niche like that and I might become an agent for that company for that specific niche. Now, that wouldn't create nearly the complexity, right? Or the confusion. So that might be the exception to the rule. So I hope that helps. Arthur, I don't use factoring for my asset-based company, but should I get factoring company before I move my first load as a broker? Arthur, that depends upon you financially. Do you need factoring in order to pay your carriers? On your first load, probably not. It depends on, if you are able to get terms with the carrier. If you're able to get 30-day terms and the carrier and the shipper pays you inside of 30 days, well, then you don't need to factor, right? Or if you have enough cash to factor that first load or pay that carrier the first load, say it's $1,000 or $2,000. But if you are going to start ramping up and your volume starts to ramp up and you don't have the cash flow, then factoring is a great resource, right? That's what factoring is designed for. It's a specialty finance program where you can actually get 90 to 95% of the invoice to the shipper. So, for example, $1,000 invoice to the shipper, you could get, say, 90% of that, 90 to 95% of that up front to pay the carrier. And then you get the rest of it on the back end minus their fee once the shipper pays the factor. So it's a great way to do it, great way to scale, and a great way to start if you don't have capital or you just don't have the cash flow. So hope that helps. Kimberly, how can we get clients signed up for our brokerage services? Can you give me some advice? Kimberly, it's a little bit generic question, but I'm going to tell you, it's called sales. Okay. There's no load boards that you're going to go to where you're going to get shippers and you're going to build a real business. It's called sales. You need to develop the skills necessary, right, to sell to another business. Right. So some of that might be cold calling. Some of that might be cold emailing. A lot of people like to use LinkedIn. Some people like to do face-to-face, where they're going out and meeting people at industrial parks and they're kind of doing stop-ins. Some people like to do networking. Some people like to do referrals. All of those are very viable strategies. Me personally, I think that the phone is the most powerful tool we have because it allows us to leverage time. Right? You can make 50 or 100 dials on a phone way faster than you can stop into 50 or 100 companies. Just basic math, right? So I'm a huge believer of the phone. That requires you to develop some skills on how to do cold calling and cold outreach and developing rapport and asking good questions. It's the reason, Kimberly, why I put together the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program. Okay. And again, I know we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but because it came back up, that Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program is where I take that piece of my brain and I teach you and coach you and mentor you on everything, the exact system that I use to do over $200 million as a freight broker. It teaches you exclusively sales and sales strategies and my sales system on how to get shippers in 2025 and beyond, whether it's an up market or a down market, it doesn't matter. Okay. That's how my system works. So obviously I can't share all of that on here. I gave you a little bit of a framework, right? Just a little bit of guidance and a little bit of an idea here because it's just kind of too of a generic of a question. But if you're really curious about getting customers and learning sales, get on the wait list. It's absolutely free and you'll get notified as soon as we open up the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, which is going to be very, very soon. And when I say soon, it could be days. Okay. All right. So wink, wink. All right, let me scroll up here. I lost myself. All right, Anthony, I'm in the process of starting my brokerage alongside with my father-in-law's carrier business. Would I have to apply for my license with his DOT-MC number? No, you don't have to. And some people don't recommend that. And you can set up a brand new DOT and a brand new MC number and have the carrier business and the broker business separated. Now, the advantages to that are that sometimes if you have an established carrier business and you try to add a brokerage to that DOT and MC number, it can have a negative impact on your insurance cost as a carrier. Now, it's not always true. So it's something you might want to consult with your insurance company on, right? There are a lot of carriers that have their own broker authority. Don't get me wrong, but I have heard from past students that are in a similar circumstance where it had an impact on their carrier insurance, right? Their truck insurance and their cargo and their, BIPD, right? So the easy, safe way to do it is to set up a different MC with a different DOT, make it a similar name. So if you have XYZ Trucking, you make the brokerage XYZ Trucking and Logistics, okay? But you have a different DOT and a different MC number, okay? You can do that. It's legal to do that. Now you're going to have it under a different LLC or a different corporation, but those two can work together, okay? So I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. Ron, can companies be too saturated with agents like Landstar, for instance? In my opinion, the answer is yes. I believe that the large agent-based brokerages like a Landstar, okay, or like some of the other big agent-based brokerages out there, like a Global Trans, or even the company that I started, Logistic Dynamics, LDI, which is a large, and they do $500 million a year, okay? They're a pretty large company. They've got a lot of agents. I believe that as one of the issues with having too many agents under one brokerage is this. If you come in to that network and you come into that universe, right, and you come on as a Landstar agent, the biggest problem you're going to run into is that all of the main shippers that use brokers, because Landstar has been around so long and because they have so many agents, most of those shippers are going to be under what they call an agent of record. So they're already going to be assigned to an agent, and you will not be able to do business with that shipper unless that agent allows you to do business with them, which they will rarely do. Okay. So again, Landstar, that's one of the biggest issues if you want to become a new agent, is you go in there, you start developing a relationship with the shipper. Maybe you can't even call the shipper because there's already an agent of record, and it limits your opportunity to build a customer base, as opposed to a smaller brokerage that's maybe doing $1 million or $5 million or $10 million in sales, who maybe has 0 agents or maybe 5 or 10 agents. And all of a sudden, they're getting most of their business from less than 50 customers. Now you have the world as your oyster. You can open up any new accounts without having any sort of conflict with another agent. Does that make sense? Olu has a question. As a new freight broker trying to generate revenue and get clients, is it okay to hire independent agents as I try to get established? It's okay. Okay. And some people do it, but what you're going to find out is two things. Number one, if you don't have your own customer base and you don't have your own processes set up for billing and collecting and the financial resources, if you don't have your own technology set up, if you don't have the experience the basic experience to run a brokerage with your own customers, maybe if you're only doing 1 load a day or a few loads a week, right? Once you get that, that step, right? Once you check that box, now you can systematize that process. And if you choose to bring on agents, you can plug them into that system. The problem, it seems to me, where you're at right now is you don't have your own customers. And if you don't have your own customers, going out and trying to hire agents to get you customers to build your business without you having your own customers is going to be challenging. Okay. Because here's the thing, right? I mean, I'm not saying you can't hire agents to come on that have no experience and they're going to start doing cold calls, but you cannot rely on agents to build the foundation of your business. Let me tell you a personal story. I started my freight brokerage back in 2003, 2004. For the first 3 years of that business, I had no agents. I had developed my own customer base. We had hired inside employees to start generating customers and moving freight. We had built an in-house freight brokerage for 3 years. I did not hire my first agent until we had already done over $6 million in sales. We were doing over $6 million a year in sales. At that point, we had built our brand. We had built our systems. We had already had positive cash flow. We were already profitable. We had already learned and developed those systems. And then we took that and we launched an agent program. That agent program rapidly grew. We learned a lot along the way. We made a lot of mistakes. We filled those holes. And eventually we transitioned out of the inside brokerage W-2 model. And we spun those people off as agents. And now Logistic Dynamics is exclusively agent-based. Okay. Or at least it was when I sold it back in 2016. So yeah, I hope that helps, but I would not rely exclusively or mainly on somebody else to go out and get you customers. You need to be able to have that skill set. You need to be able to have those systems. You need to be able to have that experience in order to run that business behind the scenes before you can start expecting other people to try to feed that machine. Hope that helps. Brittany, I have a broker offering me a 70-30 split. Awesome. They've been in business for 5 or 6 years. I don't know what to really ask. Do you have some sort of questionnaire I can use to ask them the right questions? Yes, I do. Let me find it. Let me see. I have something for you. I can Guys, sorry. Am I back? I think I lost you. Sorry, let me go back through that. It was a question from, sorry about that, guys. Let me go here. Hold on a minute. Let me find that question again. From Charles, it said, I've been a truck driver for 24 years. Will experience help me? The answer is yes. The reason why is because you have not only the lingo, but who understands better how to pick up and deliver a load on time and deliver it with good condition, in good condition than a truck driver. Nobody knows that better. When I started my brokerage back in 2003, I had zero experience. You know exponentially more right now than I did when I first got started. And so, yeah, number one, you got that knowledge, you got that experience. Number two, you've already got a built-in network. You know carriers, you know drivers, you know shippers. You've been on their docks. You've probably got a stack of old bill of ladings that you've copied or that you've had access to. You probably got business cards. You've got a built-in network. So, yeah, I think having experience as a truck driver is incredibly powerful, okay? And a huge asset to anybody joining the business. Now, will you have to learn some additional skills? Will you have to learn some sales? Will you have to learn how to get shippers? Yeah, you will. That's the reason, again, why I put together the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, because that's where most people struggle, getting their first 5 or 10 shippers and on their way to their first 7 figures in sales. That's why I put that together. So if you get on the wait list, you'll get notified. You'll be one of the first people that'll get notified when I open up enrollment, which is going to be very, very soon. Okay. I haven't opened up enrollment. I just spent over a month, right? I don't think I've let anybody new into the program in over a month, right? So it's a very exclusive small group, right? So spots are limited. So if you get on that wait list, you'll get details and we'll be able to get you going in the right direction. Okay. What time is it here? Oh my God, I bet it's 45 minutes. I was planning on only doing a half an hour, but you guys have so many questions. Hold on. Anthony asks, how long do you have to get a bond once you apply for the MC? I realize the MC won't go live until you have a bond. You know, it's a really good question. I'm not sure how long they will leave your broker application open until you get the bond. I'm not really sure. I don't have an exact answer on that. You know, it's not a question that I get. Most people, once they file their for their broker authority, right? They go through those steps, you know, but I'm going to say realistically, you're going to have at least 30 to 60 days probably to get that bond so that the bonding company can notify the FMCSA. And maybe that's the last check mark that you have to follow in order to get your authority active. Because once you file for your broker authority, you know, they're going to have you listed as a broker, but you're not going to be active. So your authority will not go active until you check all those boxes like the BOC3 and UCR, forms, and then obviously the bond, right? So hope that helps. TMP Hustle. I currently work for a pretty large brokerage as an agent, and they prefer I don't work with freight forwarders. Is that sustainable in this day and age? Absolutely, for sure. Yeah. I built an entire business. I would tell you that, when I sold the company, we were doing about $80 million a year in sales. Okay. And I know a lot of brokers that are very similar. They're doing 20, 50, $100 million in sales. And freight forwarders as customers were a very small percentage of their business, less than 10% of their business. It was mainly shipper direct customers. So where you will run into the need to do business with forwarders is when you are doing a lot of drayage work or international work or air freight, right? If you're doing very specialized stuff like that, particularly drayage, a lot of times brokers will work with freight forwarders on the drayage side inside into the port or out of the port on just the drayage movement, and the forwarder will outsource it to a broker. But that's if you're in that niche, you're probably going to need the ability to do business with freight forwarders. But if it's in any other niche, you're probably not. Maisha, hey, Dennis, after jumping into the field as an independent agent, I've realized that it's much easier to just start as an agent. Yeah, I have to give them a percentage, but I have no overhead. Exactly. Exactly. Yes. You have little or no overhead, little or no risk. Okay. And you've got a huge upside, 50 to 70% of the profit on every load, right? Here's the reality. If you can't make money as a freight agent, you're not going to make money as a freight broker because it's easier. Okay. And it's less risk. Thank you, Maisha. I'm scrolling. Give me a minute. I'm looking for some questions I haven't already answered. Elite fleet, good point. Huge part of success will simply be if customers like you. There's a rule in sales and getting clients. First, they need to know, like, and trust you. Okay? So, yes, people do business with people they like. Hold on 1 minute. Sorry about that. I had to close my door. My dog was starting to bark. Thank you for the info. Okay, question from Raman. Do we need a 75K bond or money in hand to start a brokerage? No. A broker bond is kind of like an insurance product. You pay an annual premium, which is a percentage of the bond amount. So if you have good credit, your bond is probably going to cost somewhere in the range of $1,000 to $3,000 or $4,000 a year. If you have a little bit lesser credit, it could be more expensive. But that's an annual premium if you have good credit. Now, if you don't have good credit, there are ways to securitize your bond, right? There are ways to get, as opposed to a bond, you can get a broker trust, a BMC 84 versus a BMC 85. But you don't need $75,000 cash in order to get a $75,000 bond, okay? It's a premium. You pay a percentage of that as an annual premium to maintain that bond. So I hope that helps. Sorry about when I lost sound. I'm back now. You guys can all hear me, right? Yeah. You guys can hear me now, right? You guys can definitely hear me. I've been back. Okay, good. All right. So good. Sorry about that. I'm just going through the comments and I see where everybody's like, oh, I can't hear you. You're muted. I can't hear. If I missed your question because of the mute or because of the lost sound, re-ask your question if you could. Because there's no way I'm going to be able to go back and find out who you were able to hear or not. Okay, here's a question from Carlos. I have a question about, can I take the Freight Brokers class at boot camp, the only choose to be an agent? Will this be good enough to do that, or do I need to just take the agent course? No, Freight Broker Boot Camp contains how to become a freight broker and how to become a freight agent all in one. The reason why I did that is because when people join the Freight Broker Boot Camp, sometimes they don't know if they want to be a broker or be an agent. Rather than selling two different courses, I put it all into one. So if you're a broker, then you get all the information that you need in order to become a broker. If you want to be an agent, you get all the information you need in order to become an agent. So it's an all-in-one. It's not two separate programs, okay? So if you're interested in either of those, you can just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com and you can sign up instantly and get instant access. That is an on-demand, self-paced course that over 10,000 students have went through. Many of them have went on to build 6 and 7 and even 8-figure freight brokerages. Okay. So that's the startup program. Okay. That is not the sales accelerator. That's the startup program. That's where you're going to want to start. Carlos, what does it take to become a freight agent and what do agents do? Okay. Agents Okay, so a freight broker, we'll start here. A freight broker is a middleman between carriers and shippers. They arrange transportation between shippers and carriers, and they're able to make a margin in the middle. So they work with a shipper. The shipper has a load. They want to move from point A to point B. They quote them $1,000. They then find a carrier to move that load for $800. They make a $200 profit in the middle. They never saw the load. They weren't the driver. They didn't load it. They didn't unload it. They never saw it, but they were able to make a middle and a margin for managing the freight for the shipper in conjunction with the carrier. So that's what a broker does. An agent works under a licensed broker, okay, who has a broker authority. Now they're right. And then what they do is they get their own customers, right? And then they're able to operate under that authority, and they get paid a commission, 50 to 70% of the profit on any loads that they originate. So if they go out and get a shipper XYZ, they move a load, that example that I gave you, 1,000 to the shipper, 800 to the truck, $200 profit. They'll make between 50 and 100, or between 50 and 70%, which is between $100 and $140 on that one load. What they do is they find shippers, they quote loads, they then source carriers, negotiate with those carriers. They help dispatch those carriers. They follow that load through from origin to destination to make sure it picks up on time, delivers on time, in good condition. So they're really focused on finding and moving the freight. So they don't have to worry about all the back office. Agents don't worry about billing. They don't worry about collections. They don't worry about bonds. They don't worry about software. They don't worry about any of that. They don't worry about marketing. They don't worry about that back end. Their focus is on the front end and the customer engagement. So I hope that helps. Anthony, I own a trucking company. Can I be a freight broker as well? 100%. Here's why, as a small trucking company, you should have your broker authority. Because let's say, for example, you're a trucking company that has 5 trucks. That means at any given point, the most loads you can be moving and the most loads you can be making money on is 5, okay? Because you only got 5 trucks. So if you have a shipper or a client who has more loads than you have trucks, what can you do? Nothing. As a carrier, you can do nothing. But if you have your own broker authority and your trucks are all full, but you have shippers that have more demand than you have trucks, you can then start brokering those loads out to make additional revenue. So if they've got another 5 loads, you would be able to broker those loads out to other carriers and make a margin on those. So now you're making 5 loads on your trucks and you're making 5 loads that you brokered. You just potentially doubled your profit. So yeah, absolutely, positively. If you're a carrier, I believe you should have your own broker authority, but that's just me. Arthur, we went through the brokerage credit, right? I shared with you the brokerage credit, right? Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/broker credit. And that's where you will be able to get the free credit course. He sells that for $250. Tom Crotel from Operify. But if you use that link, you will be able to get it for free. Okay? So that's how to build credit. It's an amazing course. Very simple, very straightforward, but it's on point. Okay? So I hope that helps. Brittany, I must have lost you on this. I have a broker offer me a 70-30 split. They've been in business for 5 or 6 years. I don't know what to really ask. Okay, so I think I gave you a link. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so here's where you're going to want to go. Let me pull this up for you, Brittany. If you go to this link, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/17 questions, that is a direct answer to your question. Those are the 17 questions you should ask a broker as an agent before joining their program. It's a cheat sheet. So you can go there for free. You can download that cheat sheet and you're going to get instant access to those 17 questions. Okay. So those are all the questions you should try to get answered before you join a brokerage. Very comprehensive list. Michael has a question. What did the highest earning freight brokers you've seen do differently? That's a really good question. I think the largest brokers in the country become very good at hiring and retaining talent. And here's why I say that. You might think it's sales skills. You might think it's carrier relationships. You might think it's technology. Those are all good things and those are all important. But if you want to scale from $1 million to 10 million, it's very hard to do that by yourself. So you need to learn how to hire and retain talented people, whether they're inside W-2 workers or agents. When you want to scale from 10 million to 50 million, you can't do it alone. You need a leadership team. You need people that are helping you grow the business. So I think that the companies that are able to scale the biggest and have the biggest revenue and the most profit are the companies that understand how to hire and retain good talent. Now, there's a million other things they need to know how to do. Don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of other variables in there. But that's the answer to your question. What did the highest earning freight brokers do differently? And those are the ones that have scaled up from a one-man operation to a two-man to 4 to 8 to 12, right? To 24 to 36, right? To 72 to hundreds of employees and or agents. And that's what allows them to scale. And a lot of that just comes from hiring and retaining a top talent. Good question. Carlos, agents do not get customers from load boards. Agents get carriers from load boards. Agents get customers by generating a list of potential shippers in their niche, whether that be through free resources online or paid databases, and then contacting them and selling them on why they can be valuable and help provide a solution to some of their challenges. So it's called sales. So agents don't get customers from load boards. There's never been a successful agent or broker that's ever went out and built a real business trying to get customers from a load board. If a shipper's on a load board, they're bottom feeders. Okay. I'm just being honest with you. All they're focused on is rate. You don't want to deal with them. You do not want to be the Walmart of freight brokerages, especially as a startup. The best way to go broke. Okay. Michael asks, how often would you follow up with a customer after first contact? Well, they're not a customer until they start giving me business and they start paying me. So you really mean how often would you follow up with a prospective customer or a prospect? And that really depends. I'm a big believer in what I call a multi-touch point outreach strategy. So I'm a big believer in having not only reaching out to them by phone, but by email and through LinkedIn and maybe even face-to-face, where we've got multiple touch points over a 7, 10, 15-day period, right? So I hit them from different angles and different channels. And so what I'll do is I'll have a pretty robust sales cadence during that first 10 or 15 days. And if I'm not able to get them on the phone, I'll probably push them out 30, 60, 90 days, and then I'll reinitiate it later, right? And I'll focus on some new leads, because if they haven't picked up after I've called them 3 or 4 or 5 times and sent 2 or 3 emails and tried to connect with them on LinkedIn and whatever, if they haven't even responded in that amount of time, they're probably not going to respond right now. I'm not a big believer in calling the same prospects every day and every week until they pick up. Okay. I'm not a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in follow-up, and I don't give up, but you always want to have new leads coming in and then pushing out the leads that aren't active or are not responding to what you're trying to do. And that's a big part of what I teach in the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, which is this multi-touch point outreach strategy that's part of my system. how to develop your own sales cadence in order to literally double or triple the number of contacts that you're able to make in a given day or week or month. So again, if you guys are curious about that, if you're looking to get on the wait list, if you're looking for a coach and a mentor to help you on the sales side, to help you with how to be, get shippers and on your way to 7 figures, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. It's free to get on the wait list. The program is not free. The program is not cheap, but you can get an exponential return on your investment, as many of my clients have. Okay. So I'm going to wrap it up with that today. We've been on here an hour, Q&A for a whole hour, which is rarely what I do. I usually come on here for about a half an hour. Listen, if you got any value out of today's live, if you got any value from me answering your question or anybody else's question, do me a huge favor right now. Here's all I ask. Hit the like button and share the stream. If you're on Facebook, share it with your friends. If you're on LinkedIn, hit repost, right? If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to the channel. Again, I do these free trainings every Monday at noon. Normally I do a training on the front end and QA on the back end. I spent an entire hour today focused in on your questions, your challenges, and your issues. So do me a favor. The cost of admission was $0. So all you got to do is hit the like button or share or repost this. I truly appreciate it. I always know and recognize those that do. I'll be back next Monday with another Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, assuming that my health holds up, which I think I've turned the corner. So I think we're in good shape. I think I've only coughed once or twice this whole hour. So thank you guys for being here. Truly appreciate it. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. Come back next week and we're going to make sure that you hit your goals in 2025 and beyond. Thanks all.